had the opportunity to watch the governor's press conference that just ended just a few minutes ago. Um, and I've got a laundry list of comments here, but I'm going to try to keep them as short as possible, and I'm going to turn it over to some other folks in the room. But I want to stress and say that I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to speak to Governor McMaster's multiple times throughout this event, the storm, and it's been a real pleasure to do so. I mean, the governor has stressed multiple times in phone conversations. The last one we had was early this morning about his concern to the public safety of the citizens of South Carolina and the citizens of Beaufort County. And we echo those comments as well, and we echo those concerns. So at 9:15 a.m. this morning, after we had an opportunity to do a thorough assessment of Beaufort County, it was decided at that time at 9:15 to remove the roadblock on US 278 and allow our citizens to return to Hilton Head and to Fusky Island. US 21 offered a little different challenge. In Hurricane Matthew, we had damage at the base of that ridge, and we had a similar issue that we dealt with last night, and we'll be dealing with for probably the next 24, 48 hours. As a result of that, and some communications with Fripp Island POA, which Neil will cover in a few minutes, restricted access is on US 21. We'll have sheriff's deputies and highway patrolmen at that location today and throughout. DOT being able to work on the road and recover the road, and also working with Harbor, Hunting, and Fripp Island with the POAs, because there's some issues on that as well. Working with the state EMD through this storm has been a real pleasure. The governor and the state EMD did a fantastic job. We were able to share our concerns, our thoughts, our advice throughout this, and I think it worked very well. It's also been a pleasure to work with county administration, Chairman of County Council, Mr. Kubik, Mr. Gruber. We had a very good opportunity to work with the county in that. And I've got to extend a thanks to our city and town mayors and municipal staff and municipal leaders. We communicated a lot throughout this event. It was constant, and it was very good communication. Everyone was on the same page, and we got a lot accomplished. All of our ESF partners in the EOC worked well together. They were very efficient and very effective on what our goals and objectives were. The National Guard, the South Carolina Highway Patrol, SLED, Department of Natural Resources, all of our law enforcement partners worked well within the county. Some not knowing anything about Beaufort County because they're from the upstate of South Carolina or the Midlands, and our National Guard was able to work with us throughout the storm, using their vehicles and some recently acquired vehicles that we have here in the county to patrol the entire county throughout this event. And that's very important for me to tell you. There was some officers we had to send to shelter because of the type vehicles that they drove, and the winds and the water got to be a huge challenge. But with our National Guard, we put deputies in the vehicles with the National Guard, and we also used our vehicles, and we patrolled the entire county throughout the storm. We never pulled back. I want to extend a huge thank you to our Beaufort County Sheriff's Office staff for a job well done. 348 men and women that work for Beaufort County Sheriff's Office did an incredible job, but they're still at it. They're still front and center because we're still dealing with the recovery, reentry operation, and that will continue throughout the day and probably into the next few days. I want to name a few folks, and every time you do this, you always forget someone. And hopefully those that I forget will understand. But I want to personally name Colonel Baxley, Colonel Horton, Major Zioli, our executive staff, Trinity Funk, Lieutenant Runyon, Lieutenant Tootin, Captain Bromage, who was our media liaison, and Gretchen with South Carolina EMD for all the hard work that y'all did. I want to thank the local media. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done on this. Every time we've asked for a press conference, you've been here. I think the information has been clear. It's been often, and I appreciate all the work that y'all have done. The Island Packet, Beaufort Gazette has been very good to work with through this event, and we can't say enough about our communication center here at the Sheriff's Office. Thousands, you can only imagine the thousands of calls that came into this communication center, and still are coming in, but not to the extent that was for the first 3 to 4 days. They did a terrific job. Our sheriff's deputies in Beaufort County were eager to get out and stay in the fight. They did. They're still out there patrolling the county, and we're welcoming our citizens back to Beaufort County at a pace that actually is very controlled. And our traffic management center for a wonderful job that they did as well. They did tremendous work. There's a lot of things that go on in one of these events that sometimes is overlooked or forgotten, but we appreciate everything that they've done. Again, as of 9:15 a.m. this morning, the evacuation order was lifted and rescinded by the governor, and that is for, again, Hilton Head Island and Defusky. It's an all clear, but restricted access on US 21 Harbor, Hunting, and Fripp. High tide today is at 2:30, somewhere around 2:30. Not expecting issues with that tide, but we still have to work through that. We'll monitor the roads that were affected yesterday to ensure that, because we know we got a lot of incoming traffic. So when that tide gets near high tide, then we'll have a pretty good idea on if there's any concerns we should have to deal with. Our security departments, our security partners, and mainly our gated communities are 100%. So they're back on post. So those returning will be greeted at their community with a friendly face and a known face. Lastly, most important, I can't say enough about how happy I am, and along with staff, on how the citizens of Beaufort County treated this event. They took it serious. We had a lot of people that evacuated Beaufort County. They helped us at the traffic checkpoints. We had very few debates or disputes at these locations. We understand, because our law enforcement family here in Beaufort County, their families evacuate just like everyone else. Our law enforcement stays, but their families leave. And we understand the stress and the frustration that you go through in one of these events. And I think citizens in Beaufort County, those that evacuated, I think they've seen what Harvey has done to Texas. I think that they've had enough visual impacts over the past several weeks to remind them and what a storm such as what we were facing initially could do to the low country of South Carolina. And I just want to thank them for their cooperation through a very challenging time. So I will save any comments towards the end, and Colonel Baxley, you've got some stuff you want to share.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Sheriff. Good morning. I want to continue with the comments the Sheriff made. There are two other crews that we want to name. Ron Morales and the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Charleston were presented with an incredible challenge with this storm, because as the storm shifted and eyes started looking to the north and the west, there was still an issue that we were going to face. And I stood up here for 2 days and talked about 4 to 6 foot of storm surge based on the information Ron and his staff were giving us, and they were spot on. They nailed it absolutely perfectly, and it allowed us to make some hard decisions. So I want to thank Ron Morales and the National Weather Service office in Charleston for doing an incredible job. And in the Situation Room where I'm stationed at, we had representatives of the municipalities in there constantly, immediately at hand to help us formulate our plans and make our decisions. And I can't say enough about the cooperation we had from the municipalities in making this plan. So those two folks, those two groups also. Where we're at now is the roadblocks have been lifted to Hilton Head. We're maintaining restricted access to Harbor and Hunting and Fripp. Harbor Island has power. Fripp does not at this time. Fripp does not have water, does not have sewer services, and they still have standing water in a number of places. Harbor does have power. Harbor will have water when Beaufort Jasper turns the water back on, and I understand they're supposed to be doing that. May have already happened. Done. So Harbor's water will be in good shape, but we're still dealing with the actual roadway. We'll be facing that. Hunting Island remains closed, and they're doing damage assessment out there to try and figure out where we're at. Between midnight of the 10th of September and 8 o'clock this morning, we have answered 7,654 total calls for service. That's all emergency agencies. 207 reports of power lines down, 181 fire and EMS calls, approximately 80 road closures during the course of the event. We're down now to just a couple. 275 activated alarms. We did 4 water rescues using local resources, Burton Fire and Beaufort Marine Rescue Squad. This was in the Stewart Point, Seabrook area. A number of homes flooded up there, and we were able to effect rescues of those folks using local resources with folks that we work with every day and that train for this. And 62 reports of hangers and leaners, the trees and the limbs. The shelter in Jasper County is closing this morning. We remain with 18 persons in the Battery Creek High School shelter and 43 in Bluffton, and we expect that number to go down considerably today. We will keep the shelter open if need be. If not, we will be scaling those back and closing them down. Mr. Kubik's asked me to announce that local government will resume normal operations. Local county government will resume normal operations tomorrow. The schools have released a statement that the Beaufort County school districts will resume on normal time tomorrow. And if the shelters are still open, they'll work around that, but they have announced that schools will be open. And also, SC&G is reporting as of 9 o'clock this morning, there are still 12,000 rooftops under their care that are without power, and 2,000 under Palmetto Electrics that are without power. So Beaufort County Sheriff's Office has a charging trailer, which is a vehicle we purchased about a year ago that allows people to charge their devices, and we're set up to charge all of them. We are deploying that to neighborhoods this morning.
Yes, sir. St. Helen Elementary from 10 to 1 and Ladies Island, the old Publix parking lot from 2 to 5.
St. Helen Elementary from 10 to 1 today, and then the old Publix parking lot on Ladies Island from 2 to 5, and they can come up there. We've got the charging cables and everything for practically every device out there. And so they can plug them in and charge their devices if they don't have electricity. That way they can maintain connectivity with the world and know what's going on. And again, there's absolutely no charge for that. Just show up and we'll take care of them. And I do believe that's everywhere where we're at now. The EOC remains at full activation at OpCon 1 because we're still dealing with some road closures, some trees, power lines, and the sheltering issues. But we will be scaling that back later today, and we'll announce that as it changes. Mr. Gruber?
Thank you, Colonel. I wanted to speak to a couple items here. The first is going to be with damage assessment. County staff, along with municipal staff, tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock is going to begin canvassing the county, looking for damage to structures and other improvements. They will be traveling in marked vehicles. They're going to be wearing clothing that identifies them as government employees, and so if you see them out and about in your neighborhoods, that's what they are there for. They're there to check to see what structures and improvements may have been damaged as a result of the storm. That way we can start gathering up that information, start feeding it back through here to the state and the federal government regarding any kind of potential presidential disaster declaration that may or may not be declared as a result of this event. Additionally, with regards to debris cleanup, the county is going to be opening all of its convenience centers beginning tomorrow morning. Typically, our convenience centers are closed on Wednesdays. However, we understand most people are going to be traveling back into the area today and tomorrow. They're going to want to start being able to dispose of the vegetative debris and other items that may have been damaged as a result of the storm. So we will begin staffing all of our convenience centers tomorrow morning. They will be open from 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. and we will continue that going forward for the foreseeable future. Additionally, we're going to be opening up 2 debris recovery centers, one south of the Broad at Pinckney Point. The address there is 651 Pinckney Colony Road. County staff members will be there to allow residents to come drop off construction and demolition related debris, household goods that maybe have been damaged as a result of the storm, and also vegetative debris. Obviously, the convenience centers that we have can accept certain amounts of debris, but if you have large amounts of debris, the disaster recovery centers are going to probably be the best area for you to go to take those large amounts of debris, because we've got a lot more space there where we can accept it. North of the Broad, the Eiley Farm Disaster Recovery Center is at 66 Eiley Farm Road. Again, we will have county staff members there as of 7:30 a.m. tomorrow, so that people can begin bringing their debris to these sites, and then we'll begin processing it from there. Thank you.
Did you cover the shelters?
Yes, sir, did.
Okay, about the school?
Yes, sir.
Because I must have been taking a nap, but
You're
the superintendent of education has indicated that schools will open tomorrow, and that those that are in the shelters can remain in those shelters, and he will work around the shelter capacity with school open. So I just want to make sure those that are in shelters know that they're not going to be booted out at the end of the day. Any questions?
Can you further explain for the people that are living on the harbor and Fripp what restricted access means? Will some of them be able to get home, some of them not?
Well, the restricted access for us is the road. You know, Hunting Island is closed and don't know when it will open again. I don't know what the damage is on Hunting Island yet because we hadn't had an opportunity to look at it. We've seen some pictures from the rangers that are out there, but we're still working on that. Harbor Island is a private community. Fripp Island is a private community. Fripp Island has asked that we not allow people, citizens back to Fripp, because they're trying their best to get Fripp Island open to receive their residents. So restricted access to these communities are based on the HOA and POA. We will work with them with their security to help them in any way. But until the road is fully repaired, you know, we have to be very guarded, because our job right now is to make sure that DOT can come in and do their job and repair the road. And while doing so, if we need to get a fire truck or an ambulance or police officer or what have you through there, we can, but it's limited access. But the communities need to welcome their citizens back, and we'll work with them to do so.
Is there a curfew in effect tonight, or has it expired with the evacuation to be lifted?
We'll decide that as we progress through the day. Of course, on Hilton Head and Defusky, probably will be lifted, but we're going to, of course, look at harbor hunting and Fripp, see how we can work with them and help them in that process. But we'll have a decision made probably in the next couple of hours.
And with Hurricane Matthew, I know there were a few home break-ins, someone taking advantage during the storm. Have you guys had any reports of that with this storm?
You know, we'll provide that in the next couple of days. You know, we haven't had the opportunity to really look at calls for service. We know what they are, but we need to break it down to find out what those numbers are, and we'll probably get that out in the next couple of days.
Do you know when Fripp will get sewage and water back?
I beg your
Do
pardon?
you know when Fripp will get sewage and water back?
They're working on it.
Yeah.
No, we don't have a timeline on it. They're working on it.
Okay. And for.
And a lot of that depends on when they get power back, and they don't have power back yet.
Okay, okay. And Harbortown, was closed off yesterday for flooding. Do we have any information for people that are returning to their homes? Can they get in?
Yeah, Seapine Security is back in Seapines. I think they went back yesterday afternoon, so they are in place. And I'm sure that they're working with their POA and HOA, so I don't have an answer for you on that.
Can you explain a little more about the water rescues? I know you guys mentioned there was about 4 of them.
You got the
Just kind of
information on
how the calls came out and things like that.
They were all in the Seabrook and Stewart Point area. Well Branch River and Macaulay Creek were rising due to the storm surge, and these homes were flooded. That goes back to what I had mentioned a couple nights earlier of if you live in an area where you're close to the water and it's prone to high, think about getting out. Well, the water came up in a hurry, and these folks got trapped. I think we rescued a total of 16 people out of 4 separate incidents. We used Beaufort Marine Rescue to go in with their flat bottom boats and get the people out of their homes. Water was coming up into the homes, and get them out of the homes and get them to dry ground. And then they some went to shelter and some went to family and friends. There were no injuries, and we were very fortunate. In my 25 years of doing this side of the house at the Sheriff's Office, this is the first one we've had in the daytime where we could watch everything and see everything that was happening. And so that helped us in our response efforts. But it was a 911 call. We responded. We saw what the situation was. Beaufort Marine Rescue, an incredible partner that we use every day. They responded with their boats and went in and got them, and no problems.
With that, there were a lot of trees on homes. Any preliminary reports of that with Irma?
We know of a couple, but damage assessment is just beginning today, but nowhere near the numbers that we had. Matthew was a lesson in wind for us. Irma was a lesson in surge. And we had, the National Weather Service reported just a little bit ago, the highest recorded wind in South Carolina was on Parris Island, and it was 76 mile per hour, I believe. So we got the worst winds, but it wasn't what we had, for the long sustained periods, but we had the tide. And so we're learning lessons all the time and getting better at it.
Can you talk about the waterways around the area, the debris in those, as some advice for people who might want to go out on their boat?
Absolutely. We are encouraging folks not to go joyriding in their boats. We're doing patrols today, both by air and by boat, to try and get a handle on what the debris issue is in the waterways. I'm sure it's there. I'm sure that stuff that was up in the high marshes after Matthew and had not been retrieved from the marshes has probably floated again. And so we are encouraging folks, now's not the time to go joyriding in your boats, and if you do go out, go very slowly, very carefully, with your eyes open, because there's obstacles out there that you're not going to see. Okay?
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.